Well, shalom, shalom, shalom. We made it. We here.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yeah,
Shalom.
yeah. Hallelujah. Well, we thanking the Father for all of His goodness and all of the things that He continues to build in our lives, and that's what something that we want to, as He build in our life, then we want to transfer those things and build in others' life because that's the way that things just go. They just go that way, and so we are going to get into maybe accountability on tonight, being accountable. I was trying to find a place. I think I was talking to you earlier, and then you had mentioned that. But just before, I had several other scriptures that we may refer to. But just before we began to come live, and some of you will see it then. Got a couple of those of you that are in the room, and I'm sure others may come, and some even may be watching as well. But Mark chapter 10 and verse 15, it was talking about when the little ones had came to him. But this was something that stood out because I think I explained to you, my brother, I was trying to find a place sometimes to start. You know, sometimes when I'm taking different notes, different ideas sort of throughout the day and all of that. And sometimes they don't kind of line up like I desire them to. But I want them to be a place where I can address it though. So it may not always be in order. But truly I say to you, whoever does not receive the reign of Elohim as a little child, that's important because that's the mindset that we should have. Now, it's a very difficult because that could be looked differently according what what century you're in, what year it is, and all of those things. Shall certainly not enter in. That is profound. That is really profound when you think about that, and dealing with the little ones. So, the character of a child. Now, today, and I think you sent me some earlier. I think today, one of the things I want to say is whenever we label anything, if we give something a name, then I'm trying to think how I want to say this. If we give something a name, then we have to be able to come up with more solutions or more ideas of what we came to this particular label that we are putting on, say the children, or putting on the adults or whatever, right? So if I say that you are a blank, right? Then I have to come, if it's something that is new or haven't been heard of, then I have to come up with a solution, or I have to come up with studies. I have to come up with all of these things that say that this is why this is happening, you see. So once somebody labels me as whatever, right? Once they label me that, then I have to come under that. So if they lay me, they say, "Oh, okay, we took tests and you are a do," right? And I don't want to use. I want you to fill in the blank because it may be easier that way, right? And because if I name something, then we won't realize that it needs to go more places than just that particular place that I mentioned, right? So when somebody says that you have some type of sickness, some whatever it is, then once they label you, is what I'm saying. Once they put you in a category, then they have to build scientific stuff or build whatever in that area to make it say legit, right? But once we label it, then we have to go and follow through, right? And I'm not saying that none of those things would be a bad thing. That's how you advance, and that's how you do different things in different areas. And then the Mashiach came along and said, "Listen, you need to start as a little child, to ready to receive that." Now, if we label our children certain things in certain ways and they got these, then was he talking about the little child that has this particular label, or was he talking about just a child in general? And meaning that those around us, the one that we have, that we teaching to bring them up, how was he doing this? And so that really, and I don't know, since this came to me, and what we think about responsibility is most of the time we start with our children and kind of having responsibility for that, being responsible for different things. But what I'm saying is, what child was he talking about though? Is when we label different ones or however. So I'm thinking within my heart, and you can even meditate on this yourself. I'm thinking in my heart, not in exclusion, but no matter what child that you have, right? That is something that every child may have, right? That character of that to receive and to comprehend and to do, whatever that might be. Of course, all things, for the most part, when I say normal, I'm saying all things being equal. Let's put it that way, right? So we must come as a little child in that. And that's a place of a start that we need to start at. And it's very important. It's very important. And many times in my walking this covenant, I had to think about this. What is that? What does that really consist of, right? In that, and so we can have mountains of ideas, but that's something, and for order us to enter in, you understand. In order for you to get into something, you have to come that way. So it's difficult, even though you could be sitting in a place, but you're not really there. Have you ever been doing that? Sitting there and maybe somebody asks you a question, you say, huh? All of a sudden what? Yeah. You really wasn't there because you were thinking about something else. If you allow me to use that, it's like sometimes we come into something, but if we come in as adults, you're not really there yet. You're going to have to enter in as a little child. In other words, that character, that mindset to receive, and I'm just making it so many other things, but to receive and take, to understand, to love, unconditional. They do all of these things. They have those. They have the character to do so many things, so many things, and we know that. We know that as we watch them. But just like in everyday life, right? And so one of the things that we are trying to do is we are trying to teach them sometimes responsibility. But I have found out that in order to teach that, we have to know what it's all about ourselves, right? We have to do that ourselves. And so we have examples in everyday life, right? That we want to be accountable for something, whether it's personal, professional, those situations, right? Whatever we find ourselves in. So there's a different categories, but most of all, of course, this place would be that of the things of the Father we want to be accountable for. But we have those, right? And so there, out of that is critical because we could promote responsibility, right? When we're thinking about accountability, and we can promote trust. So all of these things go together. And when we think about the English of accountability, then that's what we have, right? So hopefully that, my brother, we can share maybe sort of what accountability may look like. We'll maybe discuss some of those things on the night and how we can bring those things up. Find out where I am when it comes to accountability. And it's definitely a choice. And so I don't want to it be confused with, like, say, blaming somebody for something, right? Or something like that. Accountability is not blaming, so you have to take on. So when we talking about being accountable, then we're not blaming someone else for our responsibilities, or something like that. The things that we have been assigned to, the things that the Father has given us that we are responsible for. And so sometimes we can get those things through. Most times we get those things through someone else in order for us to be accountable to something, right? But as long as we blaming somebody, if everything is someone else's fault, right? This is important. Then you render yourself helpless. You can't come from a place. It's sort of like, okay, you can't enter into responsibility if you blaming everyone else, everything else, every around, everything around you. So it is put in our hands to be responsible. All right. So the plans, the quality of it, all of those things to make a thoughtful decision. So we plan. We have to make sure that we think through before we take on, because that's what we do. Most times we take on responsibility, and then we take on accountability, right? So we choosing to do that. There are things that we choosing for us to be that way, in that way, to make sure that everything, it's not everybody else's fault, but we're going to take responsibility for that. So when we take responsibility, then that makes us go into a commitment mode to do all that we can to make sure that, and then we will do our best. That brings about accountability when we do our best, So no matter what the outcome is, you will always listen. You will always hold yourself accountable. So now let me just, let me back up just a little bit here, maybe make a U-turn here. Is when you're talking about a little child, when I put that there about a little child, one of the things, responsibility, whatever you're doing, it is, what I want to say, it is, on different, if it's on a different scale for children, for adults, and we say teenagers. That's how we have here separated those things, or young adults, and then all of those. Your accountability, though, is different. Adults' accountability is not the same as a child accountability, right? So you have to be taught how to your outcome to be responsible, right? So most time we teaching our children or we teaching adults or whatever on how to be responsible. So you can always do this, you know, and then you'll be accountable person as you being responsible. So all of those things, because you got trust, you got all of these things to be accountable for that. But that's definitely a launch pad. Remember again, if it's everyone else's fault, then you are helpless. There's nowhere to go from there. There's just nowhere to go. So we don't want to be like that. Being accountable allows others to put their trust or to trust you, right? But really what they're trusting is your commitment to your accountability. So you have to be a committed person, and that's how you build something in. So that you can say hit it 10 times, and then on the 11th time you might miss it, whatever it might be. But you have built a commitment to the situation, and it is easy to say, oh, okay, well, you've been hitting it for 10 times. Your accountability is there. Say, well, I missed it, whatever it is. And then the accountability of that is coming forth and not blaming anybody else, but saying, I'm the one that I should have woke up. I didn't wake up on time. And here I am, so I'm taking not, oh, the clock didn't go off. I ate too much. I was real tired, but just being responsible, accountability. So sometimes we have to take that on, especially as men in the household. All the responsibility falls on us, right? It falls on us when we're talking about marriage and family. It falls on us. That's where it is. So it is very, very deep. But I'm gonna go back again to what I say. It's on different levels, and according to what your position is what your responsibility looks like. But responsibility all can affect everyone. Well, it does. It does affect everyone. If it's in the workplace, if you're trying to do something or whatever it might be, all of those things are there. So it builds that trust though, wherever you might be in the workplace or whatever it is. And then people are more understanding when you are an accountable person or your responsibilities are there and you have build that, you build that. And so that's what sometimes when we're talking about forgiveness and different things, you understand that that's what forgiveness would do. It will understand the shortfall of something. So it understand that, hey, you did 10 things right, but you didn't wake up on the 11th. That's okay, you know, and in that. And then I forgive you for that, or I can release you for that, or I understand that, because when I look back at it, your track record is such and such, And so to get off or to launch into responsibility, you have to have a track record of being responsible, So it's keeping your commitment to people. So you don't have to do it, right? But if you do it, you have to keep it. That's what makes you responsible in the things, right? So being responsible and keeping that accountability to others, right? So we want to make those things what we should make those. All right. So I want to I'll bring you in, my brother, and then if you have some questions on where we're going in this, and I have some more stuff in here, so I don't want to get lengthy, but that's what I'm saying. When we've been responsible, the other thing I want to, for the third time, to iterate that it's on different levels, if you allow me to say it that way. And then who you are is to take on that responsibility even more. All of us will be responsible, especially when we come to the things of the Father, right? In that. But it will look different according to your abilities, according to your age, according to what you know, what you don't know. So it could look differently when it deals with those things, but we have to make sure that we develop this word, what we are dealing with now, being responsible, being accountable to those things. All right, brother, did you want to jump in there or?
Praise Yah. Oh, so I got some questions for you.
Yes, sir.
So if I could just start with the first thing you brought up, when you were talking about Mark 10 there, and which I really liked what you said, but later you kind of filled in the gap with something. And the question I was getting out of that was, I did also want to. I have a question about the labels thing as well, but
Yes, 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 sure.
the other thing was, so is the measure of one's accountability determined by the one that requires it? So so the person who somebody is holding you accountable.
Well, I we'll get into that, but
Okay.
before we start, I know what you're saying, and I think I got a little place where we can get in there. Right now, this is self accountability.
Okay.
Yes, so
So
that there is someone else keeping you accountable, but right now, before you even get there, that's the little child step. Is you have to be responsible yourself before anybody else can hold you responsible.
yes, sir. So then your accountability, what you're responsible for, would be according to what level you're accountable to. Is that the way that would work?
Yeah,
So I'm not
your
expecting. Okay.
right, your commitment, if we can use that word,
Commitment.
would that
Oh,
have?
okay.
Yeah, yeah, your commitment. So
Oh,
your
okay.
commitment, say, to the things of the Father. You're accountable for that. You know, and you only. And so in doing that and being accountable for that, then the next level, what you were saying, is somebody else uh, holding you accountable. But we definitely go. I think we may have a part two, but we want to definitely deal with that because I think that can look different. I have something from the experience over the years, right?
Yes,
I
sir.
have something I want us to think about when it comes to like accountability in that I have experienced, and maybe others have too. You don't have to live that long to experience this. What I'm gonna say, I guess we'll get to it in that. So right now, like you say, thinking about that commitment, right? Being responsible, the trust, and all of that, they kind of go together. So all of those hold up the arms of responsibility. Does that
Yes.
help?
So that would be tied into the receiving. So so you would have to be responsible and committed to what you received, and that's what you're accountable for.
Right, right. And I want to, yes, that's true too, what you're saying. I just want
Okay.
to say that when responsibility is, I want us to think about starting with ourselves first. That's how you're gonna
Yes.
get, okay. That's how you're gonna get victory over that. Before you can be responsible to anybody or anything else, you have to be responsible to yourself. Because without doing that, then you can't go nowhere. There's nowhere to go. Because I'm not gonna be responsible, sort of like, love your neighbor as you love yourself type deal. I have to know the concept of what this love is, right? I have to know. So before I can be responsible to somebody else, I have to make sure that I'm responsible to myself. I think most of the times, if we start with ourselves, because what happens is I'm not saying you saying that, I'm saying that we are so much of the blame or pointing or you whatever, and we don't have a tendency to start with ourselves. Most time it sounds good. We say we point our fingers and we got three more, pointing back to you and all that. Well, that sounds good, but the starting point is us. right? The starting
Mhm.
point is us. So when the say if we have children and they do something wrong, or adults or whatever, we that person is accountable on what they did. No one else. They're accountable for what they did, right? And so if it's something they did, say if they ran the red light, then that can affect someone else. But the responsibility of accountability starts with you, me. It starts with me
Yes.
before I can get that to anybody else, right? And I'm sure you understand it, but I want to make that clear because it is important, because it can run over to anything, everything in your life that we do is, it's always the days, what the day says and what they did and how they did it. But if it doesn't start with me, then it's not gonna come out. I can blame my wife, but what about me? You know, and
Hmm.
and so the blame game can be there. And here's the thing, and I hope we don't get. Here's the thing, let's lay aside the right and wrong. Because the person can be right, in that. Right? I mean, they could be wrong. That's what I meant to say. They could be wrong, but I'm still dealing with me, right? I'm still dealing with me, because a person is wrong, don't give me the right to go. I call it going in on them, to take advantage of the situation, or to now I can elevate myself higher because you wrong and I'm right. We have that problem. So what I have to do is I have to make sure that I start with me first, in that. And it's always good. And when it comes to responsibility, I have to start with me first. And that's the reason the challenge is when we have children, according to what age, there's a lot of things in our life that we haven't been mature in. I don't want to say conquer. I don't want to say victor. I don't want to say those buzzwords, but I want to say that we are not mature in. So anytime that happens, then something else lacks, you know, and then so it could be it could lack can go into suffering, whatever area. Well, we talking about responsibility now, but whatever area it is, if I was one that couldn't cook, then the children gonna suffer because I can't cook them nothing. you know, so it has to start with me making sure that I can cook in order to feed the children, right? So I can't blame everybody else. Well, I didn't go. My mama didn't teach me. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. But I have to get on it. So if I don't know how to cook, then they will suffer until I come up to a maturity of cooking, and then they can be taking that. So I'm just using that, and you can plug in different scenarios or different situations in your life. So a lot of times, children grow with the parents according to the age, according to their knowledge, according to their understanding, right? And so in that time frame, sometimes the children also, they I don't want to say suffer, but they can get confused, or they don't understand what's going on, because you have the parents or somebody trying to work some things out, right? And that's just the way it goes. So it's not a wrong or right, or you're a bad parent. It's just that I cannot give you what I don't have myself. And so this responsibility that I'm sharing at this time is we are responsible. You start with you, no one else. Start with you, in that. So we have to then we'll be taught that support system. Maybe we'll talk about that, the support system on that. All right, brother, did that help, or you just more confused? I hope that helped a
No,
little bit, brother. Yeah.
it did. Because what my question was based on was you're accountable to what you receive,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
so if you don't do what you receive, if you don't do what you receive to do, then it isn't anyone else's fault but yours.
Right. Right.
So then, and that led me into the other question I had that you had brought up, and you kind of jumped on it in the sense just now before I could get into it. But it was a why is it so easy for us to overlook our role in a matter when something goes differently than how we intended it to go? And that's like you were talking about the blame game. So we sometimes we overlook our responsibility and our accountability and our commitment when things don't go the way they were supposed to go. And
Hmm. Hmm.
now it's no longer it's as if we had no role in it not going that way. And it's like a dodge or a cop out.
Right, right, and that's when you have to take because you just got out of being responsible when I start blaming someone else, right? So I have to take on that responsibility, and really it's easier to deal with, you know. So if I be responsible on what I'm doing, then it's easier. A person, I'll reiterate this too, is the responsibility is something that you have committed to it, right? Now that I committed to it, I have to be responsible for it. So if I do not have to commit to it, you know. So once I commit to something, to the job, let's say that you say you are hired, I put an application or whatever, then I'm responsible to do what the job, expect out of me, you know. But it starts with me. I am the one that accepted the job. I am the one that accepted the wife. I'm the one that accepted the husband. I am the one that, so I just want, because I think that's where maybe the the over the years, I think that we forget responsibility, and we do it, and it is tied to something else or someone else, or being responsible for someone else. But I think that's where we forget that you have to be responsible first. That's where the problem may lie, because if we never start with a foundation of a thing, then we can't build. And that's what we want to be. Everything that you do, you building the commitment. You got to learn how to build this. You don't wake up one day and say, I'm committed. You got to build on responsibility. You got to build on trust, because you just do. And all of these things, I'm gonna use it, can be strengthened or weakened. Never let your trust for somebody go completely out. It may be, it may be stronger than what it was, but it still should be trust. I still trust you. It's just not as strong as it used to be, if you allow me to say that, in that, because I always have to leave a way for you to strengthen your commitment to me, strengthen your trust to me. I have to have all of these areas. I have to allow you to do that. I just can't shut down or just completely, overturn those things. And your responsibility is the same way. If we start looking at it as maybe, it's not the only way, but if we look at it at a way of being strengthened and then weakness, strengthened and weakness, if we see those things, then I never let it go. It's I distrust that person. Now, we're talking about definitely those that's in the covenant. We always starts there, right? I distrust where you just diss the person, right? Now the trust may not be as strong because of the relationship. So whatever we do, we talking about building a community, right? And then we do that from the Hebraic understanding. So we have to rebuild that, because what? There are people don't know nothing about responsibility. Adults, they don't know nothing about it. I can tell by how they do it, right? So no matter in your life, you always building on it. You building the trust. You building something on the individual level. You're building something in the family level. You should be building. We are builders. We are caretakers. We are watchmen all of these things that we should be doing. And so it is very, very important, that we are responsible. That's another thing, being responsible in that. So many a times I did not look at it the way that I'm saying in a strengthen, because it was taught, or it's the mainstream of you this. I don't trust you no more. I hate you. I cut you off. Bada bada boom boom boom. Right. But when we come to our scriptures and we come to the character of the Most High, right, we have to lay those things aside and say, now you have to sort of be retaught about these things, right? But I have to come as a little child, because I thought, I thought I don't trust you no more. I have to watch you. I have to do this, and I'm just using this. And it might, be that, and it might be weaker. So on my trust on somebody, let me give you, for instance, is if I left a person in the house and they I don't know, they took my money. Say I had money on the table. They took my money. In that, we'll deal with it. Okay, we'll deal with it by Torah. We'll say this, a brother. Then how that outcome is my trust for you has been weakened, right? Because there are different ways that we can mend that through Torah. You need to pay it back, and then you need to, pay the property, whatever whatever the proper return is on that, right? So I'm building, but now I don't distrust you, right? But it has been weakened. Now, how's it been weakened? The word I'm using is I'm not going to let you in the house by myself until that can be by yourself, until it can be strengthened again. It needs to be strengthened. I can't just say, oh, I forgive, and I will forgive. I'm just saying forget or whatever. But that, I still trust you. But that right there, we're going to have to build on that again. We may have to build on that again, right? Because it does no good to have you sitting in the house and I'm away, and that's all I can think about is what you did before, right? Or what you did before. So what happens is I still trust you, but that particular, thing is not. So I can give you money to go to the store for me, right? I still trust you to do that, but it is weakened when it comes to the trust of just leaving you in my home now because of what happened. And so I'm giving you just sometimes we just, oh, I don't trust, I don't want, and you can't move on. If you put yourself in a helpless place, then you can never get out of it. When we're talking about relationships, when we're talking about, marriages, when we're talking about communities, all of that, and most people are not thinking like this. And believe it or not, it's not difficult. It's just that you don't know how to do that. I've been saying, oh, like some people say, oh, you will never be anything, like that. But that's not true, or they get mad at you, or there's certain thing, or a certain thing happens or whatever, and they just go overboard in that. So these are some things that can help us to build us up in relationship to one another, and when we do that, then we'll find out that the marriages can be stronger. So your marriage can be weak. It's just like, a vessel. You can be weaker and you can be weak, but you're still a vessel. So you can have a marriage. The marriage can be weak. And marriage don't need to be, just to disintegrate, right? But it can be weaker. But as it has been weakened, it can be strengthened, right? Never give up, right? Don't give up on anything, because once you give up, then you close the door and it's helpless. Then don't give up. It can be weakened. It goes like that, right? Life goes like that. Relationships go like that. Sometimes they at a strong point and sometimes they not, but they can always get to that strong point again. Never let it falter to a place where it just dissolved. Don't never let it get to that place. And when it's weak, then that means I can strengthen whatever area it is in my life, my walk, or my understanding in the things of the Father. Right? It might be weak, but it can be strengthened. Especially when you're around others. The scriptures tell us that we have to help those, right? We are here to help one another. Now that's a no whole nother thing, but this is what I'm saying. We to help one another. That's all right. You can be weak, but I might be in a strong area of my life, and I need to be here to help you. I might need you to help me in another area. So if we look at it as that way of trying to put that together, never give up. Never give up on nobody. Never, don't give up. Hold in there, hang in there. Hang in there. It could get better. It could be better. But like I said, using the example before, there is wisdom and understanding on how you have to do something. You just can't let, in a sense, someone, that stole from you, just let them back in the same situation again. They can prove themselves. So if the guy went to the store, or whoever it was went to the store and got my groceries and came back, that's going to strengthen that, right? And each time and we're going into responsibility, because now you're building the responsibility in that again. So each time I let him do different things, he's really building on the thing that he did of letting them in my house again, you know. And maybe it never going there, but he may come to a point where, you know what, I let him go to the store for me every once a month. And he has always brought me the right change back, the right things. He calls me if they don't have something, all of that, sure, go ahead and stay, because now that faith or that trust has been strengthened again to the point where I let him stay in the house by himself, and then we'll use this as a victory. Then he didn't steal anything, right? In that. So you will build those things, because it's sort of like, okay, I got another chance at this. So being responsible, right? You can weak something. It can be weakened in that, or anything that we do. So, but just I think it's a good thing. Just remember that in that. I might have went all over the place, my brother. But I think that I needed that. So, uh, did that help you, my brother, or did I?
And some.
Okay,
So
all right,
I'm
okay.
grateful. Yes, sir.
All right, all right. There always be circumstances outside of our control, right? There will always be that. And when we're thinking about accountability, things that are outside of your control, relax. That's the best thing you can do. Relax. You can't. There's no use to even complain about it. It's outside of your control. Don't sweat it. Don't get anxiety over it. Just do what you need to do in that, right? So it's things that are going to be outside of your control when it comes to accountability. I'm saying. So, oh, they made me accountable before it. Well, it's something out of your control, and you're dealing with somebody. Then and guess I'm sliding right into what you were saying. When you dealing with someone else, then they would feel like, well, you have always done this, and that's out of your control. That's fine. Nothing you could do about that. A righteous person that never hold something against you that was totally out of your control. That's we need help in that. See here, I got, your word is the only thing that you have over which you can have complete control over. That's what I wanted to. I think I kind of said that that your word, you do have control over that, right? You have control over that. Other circumstances, they're out of your control. But what you say, you got control over that, because you don't have to say it. So you have the chance to honor that, what you say, or you have a chance to screw it up. If you allow me to say that, or mess it up, or fail at that, right? So no matter what you say, you have those things, right? You can honor that, but you got control. You have control of what you say. You have control over that. And so that makes you a responsible person when you don't, say commit to too much, commit to what you want to be responsible to, in that, and the honesty of it. Because sometimes you can get into something. There have been times you say, well, hey, I got a job. I was excited about this job. The money's good. And you start getting in there. You say, man, I can't do this, you know. And so then you go to the manager and you say, well, I thought I could do this, but, I can't be on my feet, say 8 hours a day, doing this. And, I do apologize. You guys hired me, spent the training and all of that in me. And, but I really cannot handle this, so you'll be accountable. So you taking up for that, you're being accountable, you being responsible. And I'm sure they would understand, because most times jobs or whenever, when you think you're hiring somebody, you try to give them the big picture of what they would have to do, but you really don't know until you really, really just start getting in there and doing it day after day after day, right? And sometimes we don't know how to get out. But the way to get out is an honest report, the honesty of that, instead of the lacking or, you lacking and then they get fired, or you try to get fired, or, not motivated, you're not all that, you're not being accountable to that. So the accountability can look, it's still, you can end that job and still be accountable. It's the way that we do it in that. Um and then what happens, that's another thing, what happens to you in your life, right? It may not be your fault, but however, the way you allow these events to take shape in your life, right, that's you are responsible for. So how I grew up, the things that happened, the things that will happen, maybe, it's that it may not be your fault. You can't, when you got your parents, you got your parents. The Father gave you who you got. That's the way it is. It's not your fault. But we have to take full responsibility, because so many times people have sent across from me, it's my mama, my daddy, if they didn't do this, if they didn't do that, if they didn't, all of that. In order, you can't get no help like that. The order for you to do it, in order for that to reshape, because that's what we're doing when we come into the things of the Father. He's reshaping us. And for us to have a place to reshape, we have to take responsibility of our life. So most time we come to him, we say, Father, we did things that are not pleasing to you, did things against you. Therefore, those things make me transgress your Torah, right? So I did those things. I had to take responsibility. Not if I had this, then I wouldn't have did this against your word. No, I take responsibility, taking responsibility for my life. No one can have my life, right? To this point, I know what happened to me. I know what all of those things, but I am going to take control of my life here, and I'm going to take responsibility for that. Yes, it happened or whatever. It's not your fault that it happened, right? It's not your fault now. But I'm going to take responsibility because, okay, that happened. Now, what can I do to bring it to the good? What can I do to bring it to the Father and say, Father, I give this to you. Now put people and brethren around me that can strengthen me in this area, that I may be able to be committed, that I may be able to be responsible for that. So life will happen to us, but we have a place where we can always say we can start again. You can start again no matter where you're at. You can always start again, right? Now, one of the things of responsibility is do not overcommit, right? That's going to affect us. Anytime we do that, we overcommit on something, then it's going to mess up our responsibility, because the way that we're going to look to others is we not responsible. But what happened to us is I overcommitted. Once I overcommitted, that's it. And if I did overcommit, always I can go to the person or the people or the situation, the job or whatever it is, and then you can always get that change. It's always good to have communication in that, right? So whatever, say, promises, whatever thing that you make, keep them realistic, think them through, and then you want to be straightforward in whatever you're doing, and this will help us to be responsible, right? So if I can't get the task done, if I can't get something done at a specific time, so what I want to do is, I know that this is not going to turn out right. I want to make sure, right, that I get with the people, or get with whoever, get with my husband, get my whatever it is, and we can always rectify that, you know and then it will still be in that category, though, of being responsible, because you're responsible enough to come back and tell me I can't make it, right? But anytime you overextend yourself, you're not gonna make it. So what I have to do in all of this, I have to know what my limits is, and then those around me can help me know what my limits is, because they would know. If I told you, my brother, I said tomorrow we're gonna start running a mile, say 5 miles in the morning every morning. Well, that's not. I'm trying to walk down the street. So that I'm shooting for something that is not gonna be there. So I need you to say, well, maybe you ought to start with a half a mile, or maybe you ought to start walking first. You understand? So it's not realistic in that and what I'm doing. So I'm a fail in that. No responsibility. I'm a fail in that. So then on that, I won't say I'm gonna start out 5 miles and then I come back, because this word, responsibility, is gonna hurt that, because now I'm changing. That's not the change I'm talking about. I'm talking about, before I get into it, I need to make sure that I can do it, right? So I can say, okay, let's walk around the block. Let's do that first, right? And then I can go to that, and I can stick to that, and I can be accountable for that. Then I can be accountable for 2 blocks and 3 blocks and 4 blocks, a mile, 2 mile, 3 mile, all of that. Maybe I have to work myself up to that. So let's make sure that it's not realistic. In that. Now, the point that you was coming, what we were discussing is about giving others permission to be accountable to. What do you think about that, my brother?
Oh, there's a whole lot that's tied up into that. There's a whole lot to it. Um, um, I guess I could say, just in its basic form, is it should be something that's common and that's easy to understand and follow. Um, but I believe it gets complicated because of things that we may interpret as, those things. How can I say? I guess it's like, to me, it always makes sense as an umbrella. It's like, okay, so if I'm accountable to something, I'm holding this umbrella, and whatever I'm accountable to, that umbrella would represent as an authority, if you would, and all that umbrella covers is what I'm accountable to. And I think that, what makes it so complicated is, as people, we typically believe that we're only accountable, to ourselves. And I think, in that sense, like what you were saying, we do have a responsibility to what we received that is required of us. But I think, at the same time, there's a measure of something we received, and who we received it from, they're the ones who get to determine, um, whether you lived up to it or not. I mean, we do it all the time, like in the school world. We never grade the teacher's homework. No, the teacher grades ours. So the idea is, that's the type of accountability I'm thinking of, is that There are people who have, um, I'd say, an authority over you, and they're the ones who get to tell you whether you measured up or not. Too often, it's those areas I think that really get confusing, and I may not be the best at explaining it, but typically we don't pull over the police officer. You know, they would be the ones that could then pull you over and say, "Do you know how fast you were going?" You can't flip the tables on them and be like, "Well, how fast were you?" Know, you can't do that. Well, because there's a law, you're accountable to it, and they're the enforcers of what you're accountable to. And I think that those things would be found in everywhere. The child with the parent, the student with the teacher, the citizens with the rulers and the authorities and the judges and the kings and their people and the priests. And so when I'm looking at it in that way, that's where I think about accountability over that. If you have become a disciple of the Messiah, there is a judgment, and we're waiting for him to give us the good word in it. We can't be the one to put ourselves somewhere where he hasn't put us. So I think it just, to me, it's just like a huge topic. And when I'm thinking about someone having accountability over you, it comes in with all those elements you were saying about being honest with yourself, knowing to what you received and whom you received it from, and not being um, uncertain. I think you have to know what you have received and what's required of you, and you have to be comfortable in that instead of believing that you said something about failure. And I think the only way you can achieve failure in that structure is for the one who has authority over you gets to tell you whether or not you have succeeded or whether or not you have fallen short. And it's not a personal thing in terms of feelings. It's the the person holding the yardstick or the person with the measure gets to determine whether you've lived up to it or not. So I mean, I probably made word salad just then, but it's complicated to me to explain the authority structure of accountability because it's, I don't know, to me it's just something that makes sense. It should just make sense to every person. But I think the roles or the lines of authority makes it so complicated for others that the accountability thing becomes way more complex than it should be.
Yes, according to uh, what you are doing. Let me ask you a question. You can only give others to have. You can only give the permission to others to hold you accountable. Is that so?
Yes, sir, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. So no matter who's over you, you have already committed to the fact that you want to give them accountability. Now, I'm getting ready to say something that I think if I pour a lot of people into the room, they would say the same thing. Over my experiences, people have come to me or whatever, or whoever, I'm gonna use me, and they say, I want you to hold me responsible, accountable for such and such and such and so. It speaks well. It's the right thing to say, right? All of those things above. But I have experience, not everybody, that'd be foolish, right? But I have experienced the majority of the people. That's the reason I did, 30 or 40 minutes before this to try to get people to understand what accountability is, or being accountable before you can be accountable. Because most of us are trying to still learn how to do it. But when it's times to bring you up on that, hold me accountable for that, then I hold you accountable for it, then you reject it. So you never did really mean it from the beginning, right? So when someone, if I give you the permission to hold me accountable, which is a good thing, right? It's supposed to be a good thing, but it's only a good thing if you meant it from the beginning. I mean, I can count on one hand. That's an expression or idiom that people, when you say hold me accountable, that they listen to what you said. That's where the problem come in. And I don't know it's the culture or whatever it is, but that is the right thing to say. Oh, I want you to hold me accountable if I don't do. But if I do that, then what? And then you don't do it. So I don't know that until you don't do it, right? I think you say it. You say it. Other words, you gave me the authority. And that's another thing, that another discussion for another day, is once you give your authority to somebody else, you didn't have to do that. I don't understand why people do that when you don't have to do it. But if you do it, then you are accountable, as the word we say, to hold up to that, right? You're accountable to hold up to that. But I'm telling you, the when people say that, hold me accountable. If I come in late, hold me accountable. You're right. Most jobs they're gonna write you up, right? They give you a warning, give you another warning, whatever their policy is, then they write you up, then they get rid of you, you know, and they'll talk to you, so you need to be more accountable in those areas. And like you said, the word itself is broad according to the situation that you are in, and so it's the same thing is I'm saying, I think that if we took a survey, there are many people that said, hold me accountable, and when that time comes, whatever that is, they falter, they fail at that, that because they didn't really mean it from the beginning. You have to mean it. Again, you the one that came to say me, or you the one that took the job, or you the one or whatever, and said that this is what I want to do. I think that's where I want us to take is responsibility for ourselves, for what we say and what we do. What we say and what we do. Before you give your permission to anybody else, you need to make sure that we are responsible for what we say and what we do before I can give it to you. So if I'm telling you to help me to do that, then I'm asking your aid. But your responsibility would be to make sure that you are accountable when I say it, in that, you know. So if you say, call me and wake me up, where I won't be late, I call you, wake you up. When you get through talking to me, you get back in the bed. You just it's just something that you want to do. But when you really wanted to do it, when I call you, you say, okay, I'm up. Thank you. I appreciate you. Boom. I'm going to do my thing. I'm getting ready. I'm going to make it today. You know, you have to really want it. That person have to really want it. When they say, and then when it comes to the things of the Father, it's the same way. You have to want it. You have to want it because you have control over that, that accountability, where it's only if, I said that because it was the right thing to say. It was the easy thing to say, whatever I might have done. And then when somebody holds you accountable for it, that's when it comes. I have experienced that it didn't mean nothing, especially when it comes to the things of the Father for some reason, in that. And I have, really seen that. So you have to understand what being accountable is all about. It's action driven. It's action driven. Being accountable is action driven, right? And so, whatever the demand is in your life to submit to, no one can show us how to be, say, accountable, but to ourselves. When I say no one can show it, if you give it to somebody, I have to give over, and it's very, it shouldn't be difficult, but it's sometimes it's something when you somebody else say they they hold you accountable. Now your accountability to something can be short term. It don't have to be forever. Now when you talking husband and wife, you're talking forever. You talking long term. You talking long term. But it can be different. Make sure that it's clear. Maybe your job is 6 months. Some people they say you committed even when you're in the military. Then you have to give them say 4 years to start, and maybe 6 years total or whatever, and then you be committed to that in that. So yes, that accountability I would say too is it's a long range of things in that. Did that help, brother? Or you had another question? Did that spur something else up?
Yes, sir. Um, it like you said, it's deep. It's a deep situation. Um, I think what really strikes me the most about it and the way you put it there is the word submission to it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
like the like the analogy you gave about the phone call in the morning, and that to me would be that should be a simple thing. It should be
Mm-hmm.
really simple.
Mm-hmm.
I there I guess when understanding this is when you've made yourself obedient to something, that now like what you were saying, to me it restructures those responsibilities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when you're now accountable to, your responsibilities are also going to have different standards and different measures, because not only were you doing these things to be responsible for yourself, now the there may be a higher level of responsibility, or now there may be a more stringent or a more serious version of your responsibility. And that's what I think really changes it, is that we're too lackadaisical or flippant about the fact that you are a part of a body. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're in this body, we call the body of Hamashiach Yeshua, there are things individuals can do that could, like you were using earlier, weaken and strengthen. And I think when we make ourselves in this accountability structure, some people have a higher level of attentiveness or care towards those things. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that that's what makes the accountability desirable. So somebody's going to come up to somebody who is, I'm going to use the term better than, or more responsible than that individual in a particular area. That's now going to become something I desire. I desire to be like this person in that area. So then what to me what happens is, now I would ask them, how did you achieve this wisdom in this area? And perhaps they tell you, or perhaps they say something along the lines of okay, I'll show you. And along the way, you're like, okay, I agree to listen to you showing me. So when they come to a point to where now I need to do something differently than the way I saw it, the individual who's following should agree with what they're being told. But I think in that place is really like what you said, it causes that accountability structure to break down, because when people are in pursuit of something, they only view it that one way. I can
Mm-hmm.
only achieve this the way I see it and think it. But the person who's already achieved it, they know how to get to that particular place. They have the experience, the insight, the knowledge. So that's what really breaks it down for me, is that when we submit to being held accountable, it's going to come with um, a struggle in some areas, but peace overall.
Mhm.
And I think that that's what really is the struggle here, is that if I'm only accountable to what I agree with, that's never going to cause me to mature. There's going to be some things that are going to bump up against my understanding, or I'm going to only choose the road that I see as the path of least conflict. So I think, like, with what you're saying, is it's so interconnected, and like you said, we've all experienced it on different levels, because there's a bridge too far as well. But when you're in a
Mhm.
righteous accountability structure, it's never going to be there. You're never going to be put in a position where you're asked to do more than what you can bear, or you're being put in a position to where it's dishonest or corrupt, or the malice will come from it. And I think sometimes coming out of the world system, like you said, the trust is bound up in it. So I think if I've got a trust issue, it's going to be harder for me to be held accountable, because I may not trust those who are holding me accountable, and it's just gonna spill over from there, and that's how the blame game starts, because you may get an instruction and you don't do the instruction, and then everything falls apart, and now it's not your fault, right? No, it is your fault.
Mhm.
But just owning up to that makes the growth possible. It's like you were saying earlier about the right and wrong. You can learn a lot from not doing something the way it should have been done. But in an accountability structure, that's where you learn. But if you're trying to teach yourself what your mistake was, or what you had fallen short of, apart from what you had received to be responsible for, it's going to be harder for you to grow, because there's a lesson in it that you can only learn from the one that's holding you accountable. So I think, like, for what you were saying, it's really intricate, and it's complex, and it's tied to so many different things. It made me think of how the master told Kifa to feed his sheep, but that situation could have only happened after Kifa let him down. So there's certain things, like, we're never going to be able to achieve until we submit ourselves into this structure to grow. It's like, you can grow in the garden or outside the garden, but the best fertilizer is in the garden. And to me, like, if you choose to be in the garden, get ready for the pruning, get ready for all the things that are going to come with where the gardener is, because the gardener is going to be there doing work, and that's where he's accountable. But I think if we're not willing to get in, then what are we really expecting? We can't just sit on the bench and have the jersey and expect to stand up there at the front with the champions once they win. For no, yes, you're on the team, but who put in the work? And I think sometimes that if we just have a sideline mentality, accountability is going to be something we're flippant about. Like, oh, I do my part. Okay, but there's more required, and you're not going after the more, because you're only content with that little or whatever it is you have. Not to say that it's not enough, but we're supposed to grow, increase, and progress. So it's never something you never arrived. And to me, if no one's holding you accountable, then we should be striving to want to become more responsible in the things of the Father, and view our impact on our brothers and our sisters as a high matter of importance. But
Uh,
I don't know,
yeah,
all
no,
those.
no. I think you did good. I think that's where I wanted to leave the responsibilities of others at the end of this, and we about at the end. So those of you that's hanging in there, but those are the things that I want to maybe get ready to end this with, and you brought it out so well in the fact that one of the things I wanted to close with, and you did it, but the responsibility, right, is structured though. It's in a structure, right? And so when I start beginning, I would start, maybe trying to chop it up to look at yourself, give you different situations, but it should end up to where we are at now. It should end up to a place where you want to be responsible when it comes to the things of the Father. And this responsibility, someone is always, you'll always be responsible, or you should be, to someone. The thing that I was saying just before this, before you began again, is one of the problems with it is being responsible is not pick and choose responsible, but once you give over to responsibility, then you have to give over to it. And that's where I find that if we were praying for one another, that's where I find that where we need to make sure that we stay. It's very difficult. It's easy to explain it. I wrote some things down and all of that. But I found that it's very difficult to be responsible for something when you give yourself to it and then you pick and choose what you are responsible, for, to, or whatever. So once you agree to it, and all those other words, like you were saying, the commitment, the trust, the understand, all of those things are there under that, under that. But it is structured in that. In Genesis, of course, we was talking about, Adam, and Eve and all that, and how they was responsible for the garden and what the things that they have. Noah, we just talked about that, how he responsible for building, right? We have those responsibilities in that, Joseph was the same and all of that. So when we talk about that, we're responsible for for the words, the 10 words as well. So it's so much can be accountable for that. We're accountable to do those things. So once we learn and how to do that is we have to really choose to want to be responsible, right? And that responsibility will come out into others' lives. So truly, like you were saying, my brother, ultimately responsibility is involving somebody, you know. I just wanted to make sure that we had that foundation that it's something that I have to choose to do and then stick with it. Yeah. And then it'll help me in other areas of my life, in that. And if I do that, it may take a minute for us to understand it, to get it in our hearts. And no matter what we do, sometimes we need to really start being, especially in the covenant with the Most High, being the people of our word, So much around us. Sometimes so much goes against that. So many ideas, so many ideas in that, and then ultimately, we have our scriptures, and ultimately, we have the experience of others, like you were saying. So I'm grateful for that, and I'd rather listen to somebody say, "Yeah, I jumped off that cliff and I was fine," versus me just go ahead and try it. But that's what's really good in all of this. So hopefully, uh, that even though it was a little lengthy, I didn't just want to cut it off. I wanted to end it just like you did in that to ultimately that responsibility is ours. So those that are listening, I hope that they will, if they couldn't finish it all in one, that they will keep going because it is all one. It's not. It was sectioned off in his teaching, but ultimately we have to be responsible to one another. All right, brother. Did you have any closing words?
Let's endure to the end. Praise Yah.
Huh?
I said, let's endure to the end and praise
Oh
Yah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Yeah, let's do that. And whatever we're doing. Okay, well, I think we didn't did it, and hopefully there will be an encouragement to you and to me,
Yes.
and hopefully that I can do this, and I can guard my mouth and guard what I say, guard what I do, and realize that I am responsible to do all the things that the Father has given me to do. And guess what, my brother? It's a joy. We can do it. We can do it. So we're gonna commit to being accountable, and then we'll bring us into accountability. Right. All right. Hallelujah. All right. Shalom, shalom to everyone that's still in the house and maybe still be with us. It may not be in the chat room, but if you get a chance to maybe see this later or whatever, then good, man. All right. All right. Shalom, my brother. Thank you so very much for being there right with me, riding shotgun. I appreciate you. And
Shalom.
until we connect again, shalom,
Yes, sir.
shalom.
Much love.